Third example. This is going to be the one I talk about frequently. Peanut butter, almond butter. Could be salsa, but I don't really see salsa in the plastic one too much. But back to peanut butter. You can choose, well, there's three options, but I haven't seen it too much in that, but it might be getting more popular. But usually you're going to get a jar. And it'll be a plastic jar or it's going to be a glass jar. Let's do our process. Let's think back where it came from. Glass jar situation, what do we have? Well, what we have is somebody has to make glass jars. And glass jars are what? They're little boxes of air because they don't have anything in them. But someone has to make them because that has to go in there. And a glass jar weighs, a jar by itself, I'd have to weigh one, but might be a pound or something like that. All right, let's see if we got someone here. And we got our critter cam. It's not a very exciting critter. We'll see what else we see. Maybe we'll run into an armadillo or something. All right, back. Glass jar. Someone has to make the glass jars. Those things get loaded on pallets. Those pallets then get shipped. If you have that stuff made in China, that means someone in China is making the glass, and then that's going on a boat and then getting over here, pallets and pallets. And a pallet full of glass jars is not insignificant amount of weight. Depending on how they're done, each one of those glass jars, they'll go in a 6 or a 12 pack corrugated box with usually a little cardboard divider in there, because if they bang on each other, they might chip and or break. So they're fragile. Oh, you need lids. Yeah, the glass plate people don't make the lids. So you have to go to whoever makes the tops, and you have to make sure that you get the right top, because the thread pattern can be different, diameters. What's your coating on the inside to make a seal on that? Make sure you do that right. When you talk to your co-packer, whoever's actually packaging your stuff, they'll probably tell you what equipment they have and then what they could run. And there may be co-packers that do glass. There may be ones that do plastic. There may be ones that do both. But as far as I know, a line that runs glass and a line that runs plastic are not the same line. Just dimension-wise, they're different than each other. Weights, handling, different things like that. You've got a pallet worth of glass jars, empty, shipping air, little boxes of air. Then you have these lids. In this particular case, the lids you're probably going to source from someone else. You talk to your co-packer says, hey, we get the glass from here, you get the lids from there. Maybe they source it for you. A lot of places will do that. They charge you extra, or you can ship in your own as long as it's compatible with their equipment. So you have that, and then your co-packer goes and fills it. They've got the machine set up to put the tops on. They'll probably put a shrink wrap safety seal either around the entire unit or just the top. Those will go in a pallet, or those will go in a case, very similar to the one that it came in, corrugated box, cardboard dividers. They get shipped to you. Then that can go to the grocery store as is, or if you're selling on Amazon, you can't ship that glass jar. I talked about this in the last one, so we'll just make it short. Glass jar, bubble bag, corrugated box, label on the outside, because you can't use the labeling on the bottle itself because you can't see it, and then a seal on the outside of the box. You now have the weight of shipping empty jars, the storage for those jars, the caps. That's a separate component. Where do they come from? How are they stored? They don't take up as much room, so not a huge deal. Now you have the assembled part, and now you need to do post-assembly, or let's call it ecom prep, for the bag, the box, the extra label or the sticker, and then the seal on it. Then that goes to the customer uses it, and then they can chuck it in the trash, chuck it in the recycle. Hopefully, if they throw it in the recycle, they take the top off and put it in so the glass can go where the glass is, and the steel top can go where that goes, instead of it being one thing that somebody at some point has to take apart in order for the recycle process to work. And then that's the end of the process on that. For the plastic one, similar process, but you're still making little boxes somewhere, little boxes of air. At some factory, they're making the bottles, and those definitely look like they're made out of PET, blow molded, very similar to like a 2 liter bottle, at least in how it's produced. And then the tops, and I notice this just because the bottoms tend to be clear, like a 2 liter bottle, and the tops tend to be opaque. When if you see opaque plastic, usually it's going to be polypropylene or high density polyethylene. Those are your two options usually when you're dealing with consumable products are made from that. You get the bottom made someplace, tops are made in the same place? Possibly. It would make sense, but you'd probably source them separately. Then there's a seal on the lid on the inside, and that's a separate component too. You might get the lids made, and they may put the seal on the inside of the cap, or they may come without it, depending on how you're sourcing it. And you have to add it in, and then assembled at your factory, or if it can be pre-assembled, that's easier. Then that goes through the process of you've got pallets and pallets of empty jars. The good thing is these empty jars they weigh almost nothing because they are all air. With the last one, they're air and glass, so they end up being relatively heavy. With the plastic jars, the benefit on that is just the weight. The volume is roughly the same, and also the fragility. You could probably stack a whole ton of those plastic ones just with slip sheets, one piece of cardboard corrugate, and then you could have them all in a row, and then you shrink wrap the whole thing. And if that thing tumbles over, nothing's going to break. Doesn't matter. With the glass, they got to go in cardboard boxes or corrugate boxes. They have to have little dividers in them, or they just loading onto a truck, jostling of being driven around can be enough to get you a significant amount of breakage. So you have the situation of the plastic jars. So you're going to fill the plastic jars with your product, and then they're going to put the cap on there, and then they'll use the induction sealing, and that's usually part of the assembly line. When it's putting down there and it's putting the top on, inside that is going to be induction heating, which basically means they apply an electrical charge, and what that does is that seal that's on the inside has a little bit of aluminum in it that reacts to the induction, and it heats up and it melts the little bit of plastic on there, and that gets you a seal. And you'll see that when you open up one of these jars, you take the cap off, turn it upside down, squeeze it, nothing happens, right? It's got that little safety seal, peel here, whatever you want to call it. But that's sealed, that's your liquid barrier in that particular situation, which on the glass jar you don't have because you're just hoping that that seal is good and you don't get a ding on the metal top that allows that to leak. Again, that's why you put it in the bubble bag and put it into the corrugate box to catch that leak. With the plastic one, it's already sealed, so you don't have to worry about that. That goes off to the customer. Customer gets it. They use up your product, and then that can go in the recycle. The top and the bottom would need to go in at least separately, like have the top off, because like I said, the top, pretty sure is going to be polypropylene, and the bottom is on most of them. That's the end of the supply chain. Thinking about what we just talked about is the packaging, empty jars of air, empty boxes of air, but now we also have heavy empty boxes of air. Now there's a final one, and this goes back with what I was saying with the tea situation. I've seen these, I haven't used them, and I'll probably try one out now that I'm thinking about it, is fill it in a pouch, a smaller pouch with a little spout on top, and then you squeeze it out like a tube of toothpaste. Is that more appealing? Is that less appealing? Right now, just the prevalence of jars still, I'm guessing people prefer to have a jar, a wide mouth jar. They can use a knife and then spread it on whatever product they're going to do versus squirt it out like a big tube of toothpaste. But it's something to think about. And in that situation, if you're using a pouch, well, you're dealing with a plastic pouch, super thin. There's no boxes of air that you're shipping. You get that in a reel. Usually those have some kind of relatively thick polypropylene sort of cap or spout on them. Those are probably assembled at the time of assembly because they wouldn't roll flat. We can go to the grocery store if you want and start analyzing the materials that they have out there and see how they're assembling these different things. But either way, that particular option would take up, you're not shipping any boxes of air, light or heavy. And the disposal is just the pouch. So you're minimizing disposal. Can that be fully recycled? Hard to tell. that little plastic part on top that's polypropylene, if you rip that off, then probably. But what's the pouch made out of? Don't know off the top of my head, but it's got multiple layers and different seals on it to, keep the product fresh. One thing I just wanted to cover real quick on the pouches, because you'll see different options for, let's say, compostable or biodegradable, different things like that. Look out for that. The technology back in the past, like I've been paying attention to this stuff for like 15 years now, but the challenge that we've always had with, let's call it biodegradable, compostable, things like that, is the performance has not been there. It's not been a very good barrier or protective factor. Yes, it falls apart, which is kind of what you want, but it also means that it falls apart prior to what you might want for shelf life. The classic thing is some of these compostable or biodegradable items, they would not have a good seal. If you had a product that if it was exposed to moisture or oxygen would spoil, go rancid, whatever it is, then you'd have a problem where your shelf life went from a year in conventional packaging, and again, let's say pouch to pouch, and then it went down to 3 months if you had this other one, because the ability of these eco-friendly polymers, which are usually made out of some sort of cornstarch, potato starch, tapioca starch. They're making stuff out of coconut, I think now, because they're more natural. Their ability to create an impermeable seal is less. They're going to be a little bit porous to oxygen, moisture, and things like that, which for a product that you want to make, put on a shelf, and it's good a year from now, exactly as it was when you packaged it, that's a challenge. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, means you got to watch out. Or you just accept, okay, my product now has a 6 month shelf life instead of a 1 year shelf life. That's what it is. That's what it is. You might be able to charge more because you have eco-friendly compostable packaging, but also look into that and verify, because sometimes the compostable thing, you'll see some that are backyard compostable, municipal waste compostable only. You'll see that. And what that means is there's different levels of this being able to be compostable and how much actual industrial processing it takes to happen. And then also you might have something where the exterior of the pouch is made out of these polymers, but the interior is made out of regular polymers that you're used to that have a higher performance. And so in that case, well, if any one part of it is not compostable or recyclable, then the whole thing isn't, because it's not like someone's going to go in there and peel the layers apart and put the paper over here and the plastic A over here and the plastic B over there from a pouch. So consider that, and then talk to your vendors if you're looking at these different pouches and you do want to go the more, let's call it, eco-friendly route. Ask them about shelf life, oxygen permeability, all these different things, and see, maybe you're making a product that isn't affected by that, or a product that has or a product that's consumed very quickly, or small pouches. Let's say that you're doing, I don't know the shelf life on this, but let's say that you're doing individual like chiclets of gum in a pouch. It may not be as fresh from a minty perspective, but it's not going to be bad. It's not like you have soft dog treats to where if they get exposed to oxygen or other things, they spoil within like a month. What is your product? You might be able to put something that's less sensitive into some of these more compostable ones if that matters to you. Those are always going to cost more, and they also might be harder to process with. Always talk to your co-packer to see if they can handle that before you go making purchases of different things. And that also doesn't mean that if you're determined to have that type of packaging and your co-packer doesn't do that, look around, see if there's another co-packer that can do that. Almost every city has some sort of co-packer, and if you need to do it across the state or across the country in order to get not just what you want, but what your customer values, then it can be worth it. But it's something to look into, understand, and know the options that you have available to you while you're minimizing your costs with shipping air, heavy air, light air, or no air. But I don't know if I could sell a pouch of peanut butter to somebody, whereas a jar, everyone's used to that. Something to think about. Again, if you have any ideas or requests, go ahead and add it to the comments below, and I'll talk with you again. Hey there, guy. Oh, yeah, yeah. I see you too. You're a little guy. All right. Well, good meeting you. We'll see you again.